So my name is Ashley Mateos, and I work for the Carl-Schurz-Haus in Freiburg, Germany. Christiane told me that some of you joining tonight are not from the Freiburg area, which makes me quite happy. Always great to have people from outside. It's also always nice to meet fellow expats, as I am an expat myself. The Carl-Schurz-Haus is the German-American Institute here in Freiburg, Germany, and we offer a diverse cultural program, English language program, and also we have a vibrant all-English library. We're a nonprofit institute, and we're supported in part by our members. The main goal of the Carl-Schurz-Haus is to facilitate a transatlantic discourse across all areas ranging from literature to politics to business. In addition to coordinating the English language courses for adults at the Carl-Schurz-Haus and in companies, I'm also in charge of our German-American business community, which is bringing you this event tonight with Christiane Beinroth. So we provide events centered around transatlantic business relations, professional development, and networking. So as you are aware, tonight is all about the professional/personal development, being able to find your footing during these international transitions, whatever they may be. Here with me tonight is Christiane Beinroth of AZURATE Coaching. She is an international coach and course creator who specializes in repeat expats. And she's also one of our GABC members. I'm very happy to have you with us here, Christiane. I'm happy that you proposed this workshop for us tonight. It's something that definitely speaks to me as an individual, as an American living here in Germany for quite some time, as someone who has also lived in various countries throughout my life. Finding your footing during international transitions can be quite tricky. And so I'm very much looking forward to your presentation this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having me tonight. And yeah, as Ashley said, I'm an international online coach consultant. Give you the next little slide here. Let's see if it works. Okay, great. You know, I work with people who live and work internationally and whose international life or work affects their personal life and relationships. I come in and just, in conversations, we try to figure out and find tailored and balanced and tailored solutions for it. And I also am looking to approach more businesses as well, coming basically from both sides, not just work with the expats themselves, but also come from the business side. That's kind of on my list for the future to support businesses who have international talent and how they can support their employees, so to say. So yeah, I have lived in 5 different countries. That's why I put the nice vibes here. I've lived in 5 different countries in Europe and also about 11 years in the US. And I'm back in Germany now since about 5 years, kind of finding my way of repatriation, so to say, back home in Germany. When we think about finding our footing during international transitions, when we think international transitions, we often just think at the moment when we kind of packed up the apartment, everything is in suitcases and we move, we are in the airplane, like we think of that transition. But actually, when you think of international living, there are a lot of moments anywhere in international living where you have times of transition or decision making or change, and where you could just get that sense of something in my life is not balanced, or I don't have my my stability, my sense of stability, so to say. And that's what we want to look at tonight. And these are all points where I could come in as a coach. I just put a little timeline. Basically, even from the point where I think about deciding should I move internationally or not, and it can be for work, for love, can be whatever reason. It could just be a reasonable decision to say it makes sense, to for my CV, for my career plan, to live internationally for a while. It could be that I find a partner and like international partner, and you think one of us has to move eventually. So this could be a point where I come in already, this decision making. Then you have a time where you prepare. You have a time then of the real transition, the local transition. You depart, you arrive, and this is, I find, really interesting here because everybody responds very differently to this season. There might be people who arrive to a new location and they already experience an overload at that point, just because there's so much new information and the situation is different. It could also just be kind of a wonderful honeymoon phase, you know, that everything's just nice and great. So it's really individual, very individual what happens here during this season. And what I find and also super interesting is kind of when you have been 4 or 5 months, kind of like a little longer already in a place, sometimes even after half a year, whatever. And when everybody kind of from the outside expects you to have a routine, but maybe you yourself or your partner or one of the kids is just not there yet. And that's also a kind of a tricky point, because at this point, let's say you had a relocation manager or somebody who helped you, you know, usually the points are checked off and you are kind of outwardly, it looks like you have your apartment, you have, you know, you're set up. It looks like you arrived, but it could be that actually something is not sitting right yet and you haven't adjusted yet. And it can also be tough when you are in a relationship with somebody you moved with and they somehow, they kind of found their place at the workplace, but you maybe don't feel settled yet. So this is also a very interesting point where you could, so to say, lose your footing. And then, of course, it gets more complex, as we know. I mean, all of us expats, we know, because at some point we have to decide again, do I leave the location? And then if I leave, do I go to another expat location or do I return back home? Then you have repatriation. So, or if you move to a new expat location, you have the whole cycle again. Or if you decide to stay longer, of course, what the easiest is if you are just staying, let's say you extend for 2 years, or you might say, you know what, you even come to the point of changing a citizenship. So I think when you live an expat life or international life, there are so many deciding points that can come in. So I just wanted to put that out real quick to show, yeah, that kind of the life. It's not just that moment of like packing up in the empty apartment and sitting in the airplane. There are a lot of points where we need to make decisions or find there's change in our lives. Now, when we think of losing our footing, let's take the usual picture of somebody slipping on a banana peel. And it would be the example of, you know, the slipping, kind of like you lose your footing. But then when you think who is slipping, it makes a huge difference in a way in what constitution the person is that is slipping. Let's say if you have an old lady who's slipping, it's a total different story or the outcome consequences than when there is maybe a young boy, you know, slipping and just he catches himself, you know, flailing arms a little bit. So this is kind of, when we talk about finding footing during international transitions, the footing or the things that are changing, that's normal in international living, but we want to see what is it in us, what is it that gives us a strength and an inner stability that we manage these situations more easily or just find a good way for ourselves to get through these times. I have another picture, and that's me, just to illustrate that a little differently. This is me walking down the street. Now, when I walk down the street, everything looks good. You know, I walk straight and there's nothing unusual about it. I, you know, keep my balance, everything. But a while ago, I started salsa dancing, like it was before COVID, like I stopped now for a while. But in salsa, at least the style that I dance in dance class, when you turn and twirl, you're supposed to stay on an imaginary line. Now, I'm all over the place. I'm not on the imaginary line because my core muscles are just not strong enough. They're not in shape. I'm not in shape, basically. I mean, you know, it's all a process. You learn and you build it, and it's also muscle memory. But basically, this is, I think, a great picture for me, or the one with the banana peel too, that we want to find what is it that can give us this core strength or this strength that we navigate successfully through these situations. So here, just again, how can we strengthen our invisible core so that when change and transitions, unexpected circumstances, or vulnerable moments come our way, we are prepared in the best possible way? Now you might say, okay, this is just getting too complex already. So no worries, I will try to keep it practical. And I agreed with Ashley. Ashley sees the chat. Feel free to write something into the chat if you feel, oh, you totally don't understand this, or questions. We take questions later. There's room for questions also. But feel free to put in your comment if there's something. I will try to keep it applicable. At the same time, it's nice to dig a little bit deeper, and that's what I want to do tonight as well. So we'll take a look at the topic of people in our lives, look at some practical tips, and then we will look at something that I call needs and values. Values, basically what is important to me in life, what kind of values do I have? And then there are two other topics that we don't have time to cover. Goals, how can you set overall goals that kind of can be a stability factor or a reference point in international transitions. And then I have the topic of just your personality type and character traits, what can be an interesting aspect too when it comes to international transitions. I will have a follow-up event for that one. So let's take a look at some more tangible, practical things. And I think we all, if we have lived internationally and an expat life, it's so important that we have other people that have experience, that you have expat groups, or you have sometimes even YouTube videos that tell you the difference between the German daycare and the US daycare, or what stuff like that. Just practical information and experience from people. Or I know Nicole Pelota with her expat podcast. She's somebody that's close to the Carl-Schurz-Haus. It's just all information that is practical and applicable, and that is very helpful to us in transitions, just experience from other people. And I think joining groups is awesome. When you live somewhere, just either expat groups or something that is your hobby. It could be running, it could be arts and crafts, something in that direction. Sports really is a great thing to do. And then the next thing is also, I find it really valuable if you have long-term friends that are reachable no matter where you are. I have this one friend, she lives in the US. We know each other since 2004 or something. And she has moved a few times, I have moved a few times, but we are regularly on FaceTime. And it's just, this is a connection that is independent of where I live or where she lives. And I think if you are, especially if you're a repeated expat, this can be really helpful. Then I want to mention the family unit, the immediate family that you travel with. If you move internationally with a partner or with children, on the one hand, it's a huge support. It's because they are with you all the way, so to say. In the old place, they go together with you to the new place. But I find it a tricky one, and simply because everybody goes through this transition. And as we move to a different place, something in us always changes. It might be just slight, and also our routines break up. The way we communicate, we're influenced by the new culture, and each of us develops a little bit, and also the experience itself, we mentioned it earlier, how we adjust to the new location can be a very different experience. So on the one hand, the immediate family that we're traveling with is a great support. On the other hand, it is also a very vulnerable place, because misunderstandings could come in. One of the family members doesn't adjust well, so there can be problems coming in here. So just to make sure we understand both sides of it. So people can be like immediate family can be a big support. But again, everybody is in the transition. And then a few other tips, just real quick. And yeah, that we start our own new traditions, develop new routines. Feel free to ask for help and communicate. And you're not a bother. That's always my problem. I always feel like I'm bothering everybody, but no, feel free. If something comes up and you feel like you need support in a situation, reach out to others. Really also developing an independence towards your own culture. When you find something in another culture that you lived in and you find it more valuable, I love it to pick up things from other cultures that enrich my life and drop something in my own culture and so on. Laugh, move, exercise, eat healthy. These are all tiny little things that are so, they sound so simple, but they can just help you. If you have decent vitamins, when we go through stressful times, it's a big support. And then somebody mentioned this expression, and I really liked it, to have a do-it-yourself attitude. When we do something ourselves, we know it's not perfect. Usually we try out and, it's not the straight road. It's not if somebody, a professional, did it. And I think expat living is a little like that, and going through transitions, that it's in a sense a little bit just trial and error. Sometimes, things are just not as perfect, and we just do the best we can. So I just kind of rushed through some of these practical things to mention them. And again, it's so amazing how much support is out there, what we can find on podcasts or blogs and so on, or in expat groups for the mutual support. The thing is, though, that sometimes what we see as an issue, the answer might not be right away on hand, but maybe the real problem or the root of the problem sits a little bit deeper. And I chose the carrots here because the iceberg picture is so used up. But it's just really that sometimes you just need a practical help. You need somebody who gives you advice. Hey, go to this store, or here's a good doctor, or this is how it works here in this country. Sometimes it's just really the practical advice. But sometimes when we feel this uneasiness or feel like we are losing this sense of where do I belong, or security, or who am I in this situation, the problem often sits a little bit deeper. And that's what we want to mention today as well. Let's go over some examples just to illustrate it. Let's say you have a mom, expat mom, you moved house, you moved with your family internationally. And of course, I think several who are listening have been in this situation. You just move somewhere, you try to somehow create a halfway decent running home again. If you are, let's say, your house is not set up, everything, you have the boxes and so on. I mean, I have one lady I follow on Instagram, she's an expat. She just posted a picture the other day. She's like, we found the mittens, we found them. They have piles of boxes, and her son was like, I have cold fingers there in Canada. And she's like, we found the mittens. And so it's kind of this, you could have 3 different moms in this situation that are stressed about their house not set up. But for each one, the reason why they are stressed out might be different. For one person, it might just be, they just want to have a peaceful home. They just want to have that sense of peace and I arrived or something. Another person just longs for this maybe structure, security, which is similar to a sense of having peace, And another one might just be visually overloaded. They might love the adventure and everything, but if you sit, I mean, that's me, that's my case. If I sit in a room that is just so restless, the boxes and nothing cleaned up and a million things lying around, it's a visual overload. So here we would have a good example already about things that are actually maybe the reason that are sitting deeper when there is some easiness on the surface. Or let's say you just moved, or you're preparing for a move, or you can, whatever transition you might be in. You might feel overwhelmed with all the new things and details. That might be on the surface. But it might just be, and that's similar to the visual overload, that you're altogether a very hypersensitive person who just takes in a lot of, on a daily basis, is just a very intense person. It could just be that you're overwhelmed because it's just too many impressions on the senses. It could also be that you are more the personality type who likes to be in control of things and not so much to just go with the flow. Where you say, wait, this is kind of, I feel overwhelmed because I try to control things and I can't control them. It's just not going the way I plan it. So, or, just prefers that things are pre-planned and structured. You need stability in life. And then if you have a change situation, usually things come a little unexpected. They are not the way you have a routine. You don't have a routine with them yet. So again, an example of how the reason why you're overwhelmed could be very different. I hope this makes sense. I just want to get to the point that it's often, if you see somebody struggling with somebody, or if you yourself feel like you lose your footing, it can have different reasons why. And that's why the digging deeper makes really sense and is helpful. And usually that's what I offer in coaching, that we look at it from different angles in a way. And I, of course, have the outside view that helps then sometimes to discover what is it that actually is underneath here. Another point that I like, which, is something that I have heard somebody say, I know a person, he came from Australia and moved to Germany, wanted to kind of follow his roots, and picked up a job here. But then, after 2 years, whatever, he realized he split up with the girlfriend. The job was not so great. And then he hears from all his guys at home, they are buying a house, they're getting married, they're having kids, and they are kind of fulfilling these milestones. They are checking them off. And he was really uneasy. And he was kind of like, what am I doing? What did I do coming here? Like kind of this. And we see here, it's a good example of somebody who has been in the new location for quite a while, and then something comes up. And here, it could just be underneath that he has this value of that he wants to achieve milestones in his life, and that this goal that sits maybe deeper, or maybe he's not even aware of. Often these things that are sitting deeper, the whys, we are not even aware of them. And so that's why, like, this would be an example too that I find really that illustrates this well. So on the top, of course, we love the practical, and we need the practical connections and the groups and the practical tips around living. But in some situations, it really helps to dig deeper and see what is there. So let's look at this from a slightly different point, and that is, we want to go to your situation. Take your own life and think, what is it that gives me, what gives you your inner balance? Because when we get up in the morning, we don't ask ourselves, look in the mirror and say, who am I? Where am I? Like, there's something automatically there that kind of gives us this sense of who we are. And like, think for a moment in your life, because I try to make this a little applicable to just our situation. What gives you in your life your inner balance and stability, or your sense of safety and security? Like, what gives you assurance in how you act, go about your day, interact, communicate, or in how you feel and think, like in simply who you are? Like, what is it? And then I mentioned a few things here. What gives us this stability? Is it my job, my status, maybe even my nationality, or what I've reached, the success I have, knowledge that I have? Is it people that I have in my life, or relationships, or is it a certain place, just a sense of home, being home somewhere? Is it certain guidelines that kind of give me stability or values, experiences, routines. Routines, I think, is one thing that can give us the sense of, we get up, we go about our day, habits, agreements. And I know this sounds a little bit abstract now, but I just want to come to this point that actually when we lose our footing during international transitions, often something that is part of our identity is shifted or moved or changed. Let's choose, let's say here, profession, job position. I talked to a lady, she moved, she's an American, moved for love to Paris, like fell in love with a French guy. And she lives in Paris now since a while. She actually has kids. So her first coming to Paris was years ago. But she was, I think, in marketing somewhere, had her career, young adult, but had worked a few years, just kind of that sense of you're American, you have, this is my job, this is who I am, and you fall in love. And she moved to Paris. And she said, I came up the metro among all these people, and I felt like I could be anybody. Like she just felt like she had lost that whole sense of, so basically, we have these different things that we build our identity on, maybe more or less consciously, but during the transitions, some of these things can break away. And then it's good when we are able to just really shift and choose to other things that can give us a certain stability. Or let's say capabilities. I would say, I know how to drive a car, and I think I'm a pretty okay driver, but I've never lived in England. I think if I came to England, and have to drive on the left side, suddenly you're exposed to a situation where things where you felt secure about, where you felt like very capable, suddenly it's like, or shopping or doctors navigating the healthcare system, things like that. And you come to a new place, and it kind of usually you're kind of proud of it, and that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong about all this, But if this breaks away, we want to have other things that give us this inner strength. And I think if we can be during these times also aware of who we are, independent of any situation. Like, let's say I have one thing, like I know I'm a curious person, I'm a creative person, and these are things nobody will take away from me, no matter where I live or where I move to. And so, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the values. I have them covered up here on my screen, but like the values and needs, because if we can kind of focus on these things also a little bit, what are my overall goals in life when I go through transitions, we can sometimes more easily find answers. Yeah. So the list of things that is long, that could kind of be our stability where we have anchors. But the thing is, some items on the list might prove more reliable than others when we navigate international transitions. I hope it makes sense, and I don't want to take away from that I'm proud of maybe a job achievement or my profession. I think it's just great when we realize something is shifting from under us, and for a moment it's totally out of the picture who I am professionally, that I still have other things that are like a stability in my life, that we can do this switching and kind of being aware of it. So that's why I wanted to bring that up in between. So I just want to keep an eye on the clock. Yeah. So that's why I think it's always great if we can dig a little bit deeper. I mentioned goals. There's a lot of material out there about goal setting. We will not touch on that right now. Personality, I will talk about in a follow-up event. And we will just spend a little bit time now with the topic of needs. What needs could I have, or what values do I have in life that are maybe not met when I am having that sense of losing my footing? Because if we have a clearer picture of our values and our bigger goals in life, as well as learn a little bit about how we tick. Like I love, it's just a word about the personality thing. Like I'm more the introverted person. I have a friend, the one friend I mentioned that I FaceTime a lot. She's a social butterfly. I mean, she goes to a new place and she's all over, like she just meets people. I'm like, okay, what, really, a Facebook group to join? Okay, let's do it. But it's more like effort. And then of course I have other advantages. It doesn't matter. We all have our personality. But if I can understand that I tick like that, and it's maybe harder for me to get to know people, I think it can be, it's just that it's not that then right away the problem is gone, but I think I have a different perspective and it gives me an advantage because I can maybe just relax, be more creative, have more frustration tolerance too, and then find more really fitting and lasting solutions. Like, let's say I'm in that apartment and the boxes are there and it's just a visual overload. If I know that's just how I am and that this is a visual overload for me, I can then maybe say, okay, what could be the solution? Let's just set up one corner in a place that is peaceful and nice and even have a flower or something. Or let's see, maybe I know somebody and she has a nice living room and I can go there, or find a good cafe. Like kind of just, when I know what is sitting deeper, I think we can find much more fitting solutions than that really long lasting help us. And also, I think it's sometimes just to know what's going on. It's kind of like when you're sick and you get a diagnosis and kind of you know what's going on. It can be a big help. So I want to talk a little bit about needs that we have. And we all know this Maslow pyramid. I think everybody knows that with the basic needs and whatever. But Tony Robbins, he has this 6 human needs. I don't know. I guess some of you are familiar with Tony Robbins. He's just also one kind of very well-known person who does kind of like coaching, consulting, life coaching, something like that. And I have to say, I like this chart because especially what I like about is it shows that there's often even in us a paradox or like inner conflict, something going on. Like we have needs in life. One need would be a need for certainty. We want to have that things are certain, like kind of we have a home, we have our friends, we have our daily income, our job and so on. And on the other hand, we long that something, is new and there's adventure and excitement and joy and fun and surprise. And that is not always the same, but there's a little change and variety, These two things can be in paradox that could happen. Let's say the whole example of moving, you want a certain, maybe a peace and rest, and on the other hand, you have the chaos here. So in a transition, you could often have kind of a little tension here. Or a third need would be that it's the I, like I have a longing for significance, that I'm important and I get attention. On the other hand, I have here this need that I want to love or be loved and have the connection. So here the individual, and here more the communal, like with other people together. And I thought of an example when we have expat living. Let's say somebody has a job assignment and international, they want to do a great job there, they want to further their career. On the other hand, you have a family at home, you have a partner and children, and you want to make sure they are feeling well, they adjust well in the new location too. And there could be also tension there. I knew of a family when I lived in the US. He had a position in one of the larger companies, and he was really very qualified person, really nice person too, I have to say. But he was super busy. I mean, he worked long hours. And at the same time, they had a daughter who had medical needs, and they had a lot of doctor's appointments. And he was in this tension between, doing in this expat, he was an expat from Germany in the US, doing a good job here. On the other hand, finding time for his wife and the kids, the 2 daughters that he had. And of course, these are all things also that we find in regular life if you're expat or not, or international or not. But I think they can also be an explanation for why we lose our footing, because one of our needs is not met. Now, the interesting thing though is that then I can think about what can I do to like find a solution. And here you really to find maybe even outside help, you know, with, let's say, doctor support. They got great support too from friends, just with the daughter, you know, to go to appointments. And he was just very good at prioritizing to his schedule. But like, I think once you know maybe what could sit underneath, it helps finding solutions. Another thing would be growth, you know, your desire to grow or further your career. I talked to one expat mom. She said, you know, we have this offer to stay 2 more years in the location, but I feel like, what about my own career? We really have to think about it. Like, she was kind of the mom at home, kind of the dependent, and they found a solution. They stayed 2 more years, and she also, I think, picked up some things on the side. I know of a few people who work online. They start to work online, you know, so you can then say, okay, I want to further my career too. What can I do? Like, working online would be an option, or can I find an employer who can work with me long distance, and so on. So yeah, contribution would be another one. Now, let's move on to, so I hope, feel free to ask more questions about this later. I just want to kind of, because when we talk about losing our footing, I just have seen it so often in conversations that something sits deeper. It's not just a superficial solution that helps. It's something that may be about the why, what is important to us overall in life, and what are all our goals. That's why I like to bring these charts up. I find them very interesting and helpful in this. Now, if I work one-on-one with somebody, or, you know, you try to dig deeper, usually we like to find out what is important to them in life, what are their values. Now, usually then out of the practical situation, we kind of elicit them out of conversation. So on the next slide, I will show you a lot of words. It's a long list of kind of, that could be values. It's not a complete list. We just want to, you know, kind of look at it and maybe see what triggers. And what I actually wanted to do, that maybe you did it while you were listening already, just kind of think in your own life. If you are in a transition or any situation you have, do you see anything where you could see one of your needs is met or not met, or whatever? Try to apply it to your own situation, because what I would love for us all to, you know, you invest your hour here of an evening, and it's so, yeah, it's evening, it's dark. And I just hope that everybody can take something out of it for your everyday life, so that tomorrow, the next days, you're like, okay, it's just something that supports you in your daily life. So let's look at the next chart. So here I have a lot of words. They sound complicated. Don't be overwhelmed with it. You know, just maybe pick a few, choose whatever. And here we just have all kinds of things that could be important to us in life. And that we come, when we live internationally, we come into situations where we realize there's a clash, something is here not met. I talked about this guy, you know, from Australia. Well, he wanted adventure, you know, he wanted to, the excitement, and he moved forward, moved to Europe, but he also wanted to achieve something. And you realize that there was maybe something in conflict even here with his values. Or you have, let's say, somebody, I think the word is covered up on my screen here, belonging, or no, validating. Belonging is down here. Belonging is also a thing, like when it comes to you move and who are my friends, who do I belong to, can be something that is really important to you. For other people, it might not be so important. Or here, up here is validation. let's imagine somebody, falls in love, you want to move for love, but it's important that your parents maybe validate, or that, what you do, they approve, that it's important to you what they say, and it might influence your decision about moving. And sometimes I think we also have to come to a point of, is there something that is important to me? But at this moment, does it make sense that it's so important to me? Or should I maybe put it aside a little bit? Like here with, let's say, adventure and achieving things. I could say yes, but it's worth it now, this time, to move internationally, and I can achieve later, even if it's on the outside. It's not so, I cannot check off the list, so to say. I hope it's not getting too complicated. I was hesitating of putting the list out there, but like, maybe just think for a moment. Do you see something that you say, yes, that's important to me? Or if you have a sense of you lose your footing, is maybe this is not really met in your life. Maybe the belonging, you live internationally, you feel a little lost. Where do I belong? Could be really a question. And yeah, security, growth, we had growth, connections, and so on, just different ones. So really, sometimes you have a value conflict too, where something is in conflict in you. What I want to bring up at the end, or what we kind of, when we look through a few examples, it's all about, okay, what do we do with it? And let's take just another moment and maybe think about your life from the information I gave you, of like, that we actually, what we want to do is strengthen our core, or continuously strengthen our core in international living. What is it that can strengthen my core? We talked about some practical things. Let's say you just want to start exercising, or make sure you laugh sometimes when it gets too tense, or you want to join another group, or pick up on a sport. Is it something very practical that you just want to do, or see who are, maybe invest more into people that are friends no matter where you live? We had those really practical things, or maybe pick up a few podcasts that are great expat podcasts, and just kind of learn from people who have more experience. Is it something like that, or is it that you want to take the information about the deeper needs? Like, maybe you have a situation and you could think about, well, yeah, what is it behind? What is it that I'm maybe not happy with or missing? Like, what need, or what that is very important to me, like a value, could be not met, or yeah. And from there, then we can look for practical solutions, see what could you do because everybody's situation is so different. And that's when I work one-on-one with somebody, then we can look for more the real solutions than what could be a solution for you. But I just I hope you can take something from this information and let it just run also in your head during the next days, and see when something comes your way in your expat living, that where you feel uneasy, where you have miscommunications, your routines are broken up, anything like that, or you have decisions to make and you're wondering, what should I do? What decision would be the right one? Repatriation, coming back home to your own country, is a whole different thing. Then, or citizenship, changing citizenship, where you have a sense of, should I, like, let's say I have to give up my German citizenship, I would always be German, but thoughts around that. What is it that makes me uneasy, let's say, about giving up a citizenship, or the decision to move for love? What is the motivation? Why is it important? What holds me back? But comparing it maybe to these needs also, and overall goals that we have in life. So I hope the information I gave you tonight was a little applicable to you in some sense and triggered something. And I think what I find interesting is, or fun, when I listen to a workshop or something like that, a presentation, and it's not really the words that somebody said, but it does something in me. I get some creative ideas, and I hope that happens tonight, that either something I said is helpful to you in your international living, or yeah, just you get your own creative ideas running and going. So just want to put this out there. I will have a follow-up event, just because the whole topic of personalities and character traits and your soft skills, how could they come into play in your international transitions or expat life? Especially personality, I find it so fun to look at a few personality models and stuff like that too. I will do that on 12th of January, same time, basically. I will do it through my website, azurate.com/live. If you want, that would be kind of the website to go to sign up. And also, if you have any questions for me, I mean, we can pick up some questions now if there are any, or also feel free to connect with me. As I said, I do coaching. It's very low key. Just connect with me and see if there's anything I can help you with, or and that's the email that you reach me, connect@azurate.com. I'm online in quite a few places, more than I can catch up with. The best two to connect are LinkedIn and also Instagram. Those are the ones I'm most active on. And also I started to be on an expat radio. It's called expatmedia.onl, but you find the link on here on my website, and I have the events. If I have any events coming up, it's on here. I'm on radio every Monday from 10:30 to 11 a.m. Now it's very low key. It's kind of an expat radio, but we have a topic we pick up on. Coming Monday, we have actually Christelle Pilot will be on radio next Monday. So yeah, just wanted to give you all this information if you need it. And thank you for listening. Thank you for joining tonight. I know your time is valuable.
Thank you, Christiane, for that.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions coming from feel free to drop your questions into the chat, or you're also welcome to unmute yourselves. I do have a question to get us started, actually. And first of all, I really like this analogy that you gave with having to strengthen your core in order to be able to find your footing in that transition, because if we don't have a strong core, that is when we fall.
Yeah.
And so physically, but also emotionally, mentally, right? So you have to have that core, you have to have that base. And then to think about all these things that make up your core, and who actually are you? What is it that makes you you? And what is it that you can rely on even when you're in a different place, even when you're trying to work in a different language, in a different time zone, so many different factors, right? So having that core is so important. And so, but as part of that, I feel like at least a lot of American expats that I know in the German area, a lot of them that are especially new struggle with trying to find that balance of their core and how they identify either as an American, or maybe they're still identifying with their friend group or their family group at home. And then also being able to actually find a support system where they are. And so they find themselves split with, okay, I'm doing FaceTime with friends and family back home, so I'm not going out to this group meeting or meet up with other people here. So then they're not actually being able to make those connections here. And I think they end up in this temporary world as well. And so do you think, is there a correct time when, or I guess not a correct time, but is there a point when you actually have to say, okay, I need to now focus on where I am now as opposed to where I came from?
Yeah. I would say it's very individual. And I think it's not so much about the time or exactly maybe the hours you invest here or there. I think and that's where I come back to the core. I think the first step is more, like in my example, I started to focus more, because, okay, so I have lived internationally in different countries, and especially coming back from the US, I had to move back for visa reasons from the US, then was back in the US for another 2 years, came back. And I realized how my heart was very split. And there was the question, exactly that same question, how much do I kind of in my mind and in my time live in the US, and how much do I start to build roots here again? And I think it helped me a lot to actually also bring in things, who am I independent of the US or Germany? Like really kind of taking both places. I mean, I know that sounds abstract again, but like, if you can take basically both out and say, okay, who am I? Like, for example, I mentioned it earlier, I'm a curious person no matter where I am. So that can be a focus. I'm just curious. I love new things. And being in Germany, I didn't want to be in Germany, but I could still be curious and fulfill that and feel like it was purposeful. Or I'm creative, you know, I started sewing again, and or then picking up certain things that are important to me, like synergy. I love synergy. I love when there is whatever, I give you an answer, but 4 or 5 people listen and they gain something from it too, you know. So maybe focusing on that, and then just or not just focusing on that, but also bringing awareness to those sides of us, because that is also part of us, not just that I'm living here or there, but what are these sides in us that that also are part of who I am. And then I think we can just think about, when it comes to how much time do I spend, let's say, online, trying to keep up connections in the US or invest in relationships here. I can actually also look at what is important to me, you know. If I meet a person here in Germany and I feel like they are robbing my time, they're not worth investing. How would you say it? Like, it's not just about, okay, now you want to spend time so that you grow roots in Germany, but you want to spend it with the right people that are right for you. Also, and you had the same goal back home, and the same with keeping contact with people in your past. So let's say you came from the US. Who do I stay in touch with? Who do I invest in? Are those valuable friendships? You know, and you realize with some people, maybe it's not so profitable anymore to stay in touch with them, and you can let it go, or it could be a looser relationship. And then maybe you have family and you say, yes, of course, I'm less in touch with them than if I lived there, of course. You know, that was always my case being abroad, and my family in Germany. I have an extended family here in Germany, but I can maybe focus my attention more based on what is overall important in my life. Does that make a little sense? Like, so it's not so much, okay, now I'm in Germany and now I have to grow roots here and should not be on my FaceTime too much, you know, or something like that. But it's more like, who are the kind of people that I want to spend time with, or who are the people back home that it's worth to keep investing. And then sometimes it can be more or less, but we all know also, like, I have some friends, I might not talk to them for 3-4 months, and then you pick up the phone and it's right there. And I think, so sometimes it's not the time factor, you know. Yeah, so that would kind of be my answer. Really be more purposeful with, why would I spend time with them, no matter if it's here or there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think it also helps when you're establishing those connections as well, and you identify what it is that's important to you, and the connections that will be important to you, and how to develop them. And because I've also found through my own personal experience that it's hard to make connections with other people in this similar situation when you know that, okay, in 2 years they're going to be gone. They're not going to be here anymore. And am I going to invest my time into this person in getting to know them and trying to develop a relationship that I know is just going to then leave? or and so I think it's hard to do when you have that switch between, okay, is this temporary? Is this permanent? What is this going to be for me? How is this going to play out? And you never really know how it's going to work out either.
I think there's also a switch, and we can have a little switch when we are international people, switch in mindset, maybe, that I want to expect that I meet people and our path. I just talked the other day with somebody about that. You meet somebody and it's perfect that you met them. You know, it's just valuable for the moment. It's a valuable friendship. And then maybe down the road comes a time when you say goodbye. And I think this is something that I want to just have as part of my life as an international. I think if you have that attitude, that we kind of make ourselves, of course, vulnerable when you open up to somebody new, we invest, but we in a way know that one day our path will, will part. But I think it is part of international living. I see it at least like that more like when somebody lives in one place. I have one sister, she has lived in one place for whatever, 25 years, and she has some friends that she has since 25 years, and that's great, that's her life. But it's a different story. When she invested 25 years ago, these friendships are still going tightly, But I think I want to pick that up as being part of my international life. And even now, being back home, like kind of, so to say, being back home, I kind of built my identity around I'm an expat in my own country. Like not expat, I'm an international in my country. And I like that idea of you meet people in international living and one day, it will hurt, but you want to open up to it nevertheless, and not
Right.
because it will add to our life, even if the way parts.
I think what I was referring to is more so when you don't have that click, when it's more so, oh, you're an American and I'm an American and we're both in Germany. Let's get to know each other. We need to talk about X, Y, Z first, and then maybe we'll hit it off. But I completely agree that when you meet somebody and it clicks and you realize that, oh, this is a fantastic ride that we're going down together. We know at some point it's going to end because you're on this path and I'm on that path, but for the time being we're together, and then we're going to go in different directions. And that's how you meet some wonderful people that you can only speak with maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years, but you still are able to have that wonderful connection with them. And so of course still remaining open for that. Yeah.
But I just like the thought that what you said, that just because they are also American, do I need to, or do I want to, should I? And maybe there's a way to find a compromise to say, yes, it's great. It's always great to, meet people abroad from home, from your country. Maybe you can find a compromise that, of course, you get in touch a little bit with them, have some conversations here and there, because it's often a meaningful, practical exchange too with information, or you could be of help to somebody who's not there so long yet. But then also think in general, is it a person that enriches my life, or I can enrich them? Maybe it can be a compromise too.
Right. Yeah. And I think another important point that you brought up during your presentation was also about milestones. And this is something that I think internationals or expats, people who are living abroad or people who have been removed from their central family group or friend group, when they tune back into those groups, they see them hitting those milestones. And then you start to feel this, well, okay, my brother now has a house and 3 kids and a dog, and they have a retirement plan set up, and I'm still living in an apartment like a university student, but I'm in France and half of the year in Prague. And I feel like, as somebody who has chosen this path or who has ended up on this path, that you end up with different milestones. And I think that you should also kind of think about those, but also celebrate them too, because there are these milestones such as going to the grocery store and being able to find exactly the type of pasta that you're looking for in under 10 minutes, maybe. So even something as small as that, it's a milestone, right? Because you know where you're going, you know what you need to find, and you're out of your comfort zone, but you're able to find the things that comfort you.
Yeah, I really like that, how you put it, and also celebrate the milestones, like set your own milestones, celebrate them. And I think that's where the whole expat groups come in, because you find other people or just other internationals, it doesn't have to be an official group, that bring their own experience with that, because you don't fit in. It's the whole thing of belonging too, everybody has lived their life and you kind of, do I belong still? Am I different? But then sometimes also we overthink it, because somebody might have reached their milestone, but they are actually completely bored back home with their life, and they look at you and might be really excited for you and maybe even jealous. So sometimes we have to, how would you say, make it more relative, give it its right perspective too. But that, of course, then it's helpful to be together with other internationals and exchange ideas there, and experiences.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Christiane, I always enjoy speaking with you. I think that we always have lovely conversations, and I could talk and talk for forever now. But I didn't see any more questions coming through in the chat, so I think we might just tie things up this evening if you're okay with that.
Yes, because let's value everybody's time here.
Yes, we do. We value everybody's time, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you are looking to broaden your network while supporting your local German American Institute in Freiburg, I encourage you to become members of the Carl-Schurz-Haus or of the German American business community. As a nonprofit organization, the Carl-Schurz-Haus relies on the support of our local and virtual community members. So if you're not a member yet and are interested in becoming one, please visit our website or send me an email. I can also drop that into the chat really quick for you. Here we go. And I lost my chat. There we are.
Great. Perfect. Yeah.
And this was actually our last event of the year. We do have a story time this Saturday for kids here at the Carl-Schurz-Haus. So if you are in Freiburg, you're welcome to bring your kids to a reading in our library. Otherwise, if you are interested in further events and don't want to miss out, please sign up for our newsletter. If you happen to miss an event like this one this evening, you can find most recordings on our YouTube page, which I will also happily drop into the chat as well. There you are. And yeah, that'll be it for this evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Christiane, for the wonderful presentation, which I will pop up on YouTube hopefully tomorrow and send that link around. You'll find a post on LinkedIn, I'm sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
thank you,
so
Ashley,
for joining us, and we'll be seeing each other soon enough, I'm sure.
We'll see each other. Have a good rest of the week, Ashley.
Thank you, you too. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.